Okay, we're live. Testing, testing. Today on Quality Time with Family Ties, we learn bullshit. Bullshit.
Three, two, one. Hey, everybody! Welcome to Quality Time with Family Ties. I'm Corey Pepper, one of your hosts. I'm across country from Paul Packler. How are you, Paul?
Great. Happy Thanksgiving, Corey.
Happy Thanksgiving. Hey, how's the weather like there? Is it nice?
It's nice and chilly. It's been in the 30s and 40s. It's my perfect vest, or not vest, sweater and
Yeah.
sports jacket, and I wear a scarf and fingerless gloves. It's pretty much my time of year.
It's my favorite weather time of year in New York. I think it's just great. I really like it right pre-Thanksgiving when it's just that nip of winter in the air, just a nip of winter. It's not full blast yet.
Yeah, and usually every year I fall in love with Meg Ryan, even though we don't get along at 1st. We have a certain charisma, and then we fall in love by the end.
The best dates I ever had in New York were going to watch them blow up the balloons for the Macy's Day Parade on the Upper West Side late the night before Thanksgiving.
That's a big event now. It's not something you can just do.
Really? I got laid twice. Two different women.
Is it because you're watching things inflate that you're like, ooh, hey, speaking of which?
No idea. I'm shocked both times.
Well, you're a very nice person. I'm sure that they were just having a lovely time with you.
Or as it turns out, 30 years later, I could have just been sexually harassing them.
We'll find out soon, I'm sure.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So this episode of Family Ties, Season 6, Episode 11, Citizen Keaton. Hence your muttering bullshit. Because this was an episode filled with bullshit.
Yeah, thank you. Have you seen Citizen Kane?
I have. I actually think it's a terrific movie. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I've seen it twice, but it's been so long. But it's obviously the best film ever made, as they say.
It's, you know, what was shocking to me when I saw it, I think the first time I saw it, I was in high school. And it was in black and white, so I immediately thought it was a piece of crap and was not interested in it. I was stunned by how much humor, wit, it was a witty film. I was shocked at how smart and funny it was and constantly interesting.
Yeah, it's just very insightful about, it's a tragedy in like the Greek tragedy sense of the way of just a character going from a high place to a low place. It's an American tragedy.
Yes.
In the same way that Death of a Salesman is.
Yes. And in the same way that this episode of Family Ties is just an
Truly
American
tragedy.
It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy that 6 years in, we have rehashed so many plot lines from the show. The new writers just simply didn't watch other episodes.
No. And I don't think they cared, even if they did watch them.
They wouldn't have cared. Because the Alex treating one of his siblings like a puppet and taking control of something that they're doing is something we've done 2, 3, 4 times in the past.
Yeah. And I feel like with this episode, there was an opportunity for them to go in a different direction where I would have enjoyed this episode a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
But by halfway through, it falls apart.
Completely. Well, if we get going, we're in the very first scene. We're in the kitchen. The family is gathered around, and they're eating fortune cookies, and sort of teaching Andrew how to eat fortune cookies.
Two big things right at the outset. First of all, Stephen Keaton calling Chinese pearls of wisdom or whatever he says Oriental, which was, wow, that was a fucking thing.
But my mom still calls people of Asian descent Orientals.
Oh, wow. Well, she is 92, right?
94.
Even worse. And then the other thing that Stephen does, he says, everyone takes his cookie. That there used to be a thing that people, if you were talking about a person hypothetically, you said him or he. You know, like you would say a fireman or a mailman or whatever. The male was the default. And the way that he said it, where he's like, everyone takes his cookie, and then you're talking to 3 women and 2 men.
Everyone takes their cookie. Not
right.
everyone take his or her cookie.
Right. It was just such an old-fashioned thing that when it came up, it just hit me. I was like, oh, wow, I haven't heard that sort of way of
Everyone
speaking in forever.
Yeah, that's very strange. And Mallory and Skippy come in almost immediately and announce that Mallory has decided to run for president of Grant College. Sort of a
Sure.
thing.
That's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm surprised that a community college would have a student government.
As was I, a little surprised, and ultimately shocked that there'd be so many people involved on campaign night, on election.
How much do you think that they spent on that campaign?
I have no words. The whole thing is so ludicrous. It just was so over the top.
The hats alone must have cost like $20 each.
Just ludicrous. What did Alex say in the scene? Oh, I didn't realize they had what are the qualifications of running for president of Grant College? Something in a pulse. What was it?
A D- and a pulse.
Oh, that's it. A D- and a pulse. And then they go over the history of Stephen and Elise's voting record, most recent voting record of supporting Democratic failures in national elections.
That was a big narrative after George McGovern in '72 was that the Democratic Party was just a party of losers when it comes to presidential politics. And it was. So, like, by the time you got to Clinton in '92, the Democratic Party shifted way to the right in order to win over this populace that has been, for the past 25 years, going to Republicans.
Look where we are now.
Well, things change, but I mean, just this narrative of the Democratic Party being a loser party,
right,
in the '80s was a real big deal. Like, that's what everybody thought.
So Mallory wants to discuss issues. She wants it to be an issue-oriented campaign, and Skippy volunteers to be her campaign manager.
Is this the first time we've had Skippy back in season 6?
I think so. He hasn't been back for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first time. And then we cut to the living room, and it's they're working on the campaign, and it's Skippy and Mallory have they come up with a big slogan for the campaign: "Vote for Mallory." And that's when I wrote down my first question that I always write down on every episode that Skippy's in: why do they write him retarded?
It's really weird because sometimes he's supposed to be smart, sometimes he's like, I don't know what the word would be, spazzy or like he's not smart, he's a geek or dork, or I don't know what you would call it, but like
haplessly stupid in this episode. Like the big puppy dog smile, but he doesn't understand concepts that someone would have to understand to go to college. It's just silly.
But then we get a breath of fresh air because who comes in the front door but Amy?
Oh, Amy Sussman, thank God. Really just terrific. And then they proceed to give her diddly squat to do in this whole episode.
Yeah, it's so funny because she and Skippy are the ones, they had their whole episode this season where they dated or they started going out and all that stuff. But in this, she just gets relegated to practically an under 5.
She's a glorified under 5 in this. And Lauren and Alex are in the scene. They paid a lot of cast in this episode.
This is you're leading to my thing of where this episode went wrong.
They just spread this out over such a large cast of people. We have the Alex and Lauren, we have Nick, we have Skippy, we have Amy, we have Mom, and we have Dad, and we have Andrew.
And a cast of hundreds at the college.
A cast of hundreds, and there's no reason for it.
No. And the one person that's missing, I don't want to get out in front of this, but
right.
The person that's missing that I've been alluding to this whole time is who ends up winning the election, spoiler, at the end, is Marcia.
I wrote down at the end, how is it again that these writers write something that happens off screen? They wrote, and you're right, we do need to get ahead. Let's cut to the chase. Mallory loses the election to Marcia Elkins. P.S. We never meet Marcia Elkins.
No, this whole episode becomes about how Alex turns this into something about him, and
Right.
Mallory goes against all of her instincts of what she wants to run on, as opposed to, hey, there's someone you're running against. I forget halfway through that she's even running against someone.
I totally forgot until she lost and they announced she lost to Marcia Elkins. And I thought, for God's sakes, they never showed us Marcia Elkins. Even if you threw her in for a scene, it would have been better.
Yeah, they could have had a debate. They could have been fighting over who's putting up signs.
They dug their heels in, and they were so intent upon making this episode about Alex, which is the whole problem with the episode. Because when it becomes about Alex, it ranges into sociopathy once again.
Yep.
And when we get to Alex having a poster with Alex's face on it instead of Mallory's face, that's really sort of kind of, what kind of character did you create here?
Yeah, and he's not charming enough anymore to pull this off. We've seen this one too many times, or no, we've seen this like 10 too many times.
So if we go back to the living room scene, when Amy comes in, also there's another thing that happens in this scene. Lauren, who for some reason is in the scene for no reason, now needs to get out of the scene. So she says to Stephen and Elise, who are going to pick up Andrew from preschool, they say, hey, she says, hey, can you guys drop me off at the university? She lives in Dayton, Ohio, and she doesn't drive?
Yeah. Why? How did she get over to the house?
Yeah. I don't know. It made no sense. It was almost seemed expository for a moment. And yet I realized it wasn't expository. It was just a dangling thread of nothing.
Well, they do that a lot in this episode, because in the first scene, when Andy is opening his fortune cookie, he goes, I ate my fortune. Jennifer picks him up and she picks him up and does her like expository, now we're going to exit, she used to do all the time last season. Right. This time she goes, come on, Andy, we'll go find you a fortune. And it's like, what the fuck does that mean?
I know. What does that mean? It means nothing. It means we need to get out of this scene.
Yes, and so they do it with Lauren. They do it with Amy, I think, once. It's hilarious.
After Lauren, Stephen, and Elise leave, Mallory and Alex and Skippy try and come up with a strategy for the election. And that strategy seems to focus on diet soda in the vending machines and new drapes in the student center.
This is the same sort of bullshit that this show has been larded with since day one, where Gary David Goldberg wanted to make a show about politics and then either doesn't know anything about politics or doesn't want to piss off anybody because he's a moral coward.
It's just awful.
Like, again, you could pick all kinds of different things. Like, Alex is a conservative. Mallory doesn't know any better. It could be an interesting thing about, I don't know, what the fuck what would a student government at a community college do? But there's more interesting things than drapes and Coke.
And once again, this would have been the perfect place to bring in Marcia Elkins. What is she campaigning for? Then campaign opposite her. And then the scene should have been Marcia and Mallory and their debate leading up to the act break. But instead, we range into the absolute ridiculous. We have Alex at the student center at Grant College. My first question is, hey, buddy, you make fun of this school all the time that it's for idiots.
Right.
All of a sudden, you have the time to take away from your elitist Ivy League local college to go to Grant to be the campaign manager for your sister, dressing in a shirt and tie and bold skimmer hat and walk around people eating tuna sandwiches. It's so fucking ridiculous.
Has he no class to go to? What's he doing?
Where's his girlfriend telling him you're acting like a fucking idiot? And then in the middle of this fucking scene where they terrorize this poor girl trying to eat her fucking lunch, and this dope sitting near the girl then informs them, she says something nasty about the drapes, and then the girl goes, my mother made these drapes. So students, parents are now making the drapes that they hang at the student center at the local junior college. What reality are these people living in?
I mean, maybe she works there, the mom does, or she went there and was the student president before, and so this girl is a legacy at Grant College. It could be.
They can say anything, and 30 years later, two idiots like us aren't going to parse what they say and say, hey, you need to defend how you came up with that line, asshole, because there was no reason for her to say that.
No, it was just for the cheap joke.
Yes.
But come on, you're getting paid tens of thousands of dollars a year. Think a little bit.
God, they were so lazy. And now all of a sudden, of all people, Nick drops by. So clearly security on the college campus was not priority one for Grant College.
Well, that might be the most dated part of all, is that you can just wander into any school.
College campus, yeah. Good luck. Wow, that was just so silly. So Nick walks in, and then she starts like a campaign, like a stump speech. Although she's got no speech, Mallory, but she starts like her stump speech, and she like promises to end all pop quizzes.
Okay.
And that's the act out.
Yeah. People are applauding and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
There was this one young guy that was like an under 5'2". He looked so familiar, and I just didn't have time to look him up. Did you happen to see who he was?
No.
Are you looking right now?
Of course I am.
Okay, I'll riff then. Yeah, he looked like the kid from like Weird Science or something. I don't know, or maybe he was from like a ski school movie in the 80s.
And he had a line and everything?
Yeah, he was like, "Hey, Mallory, could you get a date for me for the prom?"
Oh, okay.
I don't know. He said something, but it was just like, I don't know who he was.
Season 6, episode 11, Citizen Keaton. Here we are. Cast. Let's see. Maria Bradley was Constance. That must be Sandwich Eater. Julia Curtis was Amy Sussman. Sam. His name is Ira Hayden.
That sounds familiar. Who was he?
That's Ira Hayden, 1966. Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Father of the Bride. No, nothing major.
Oh, that's it. Nightmare on Elm Street 3. He was the one that turns into a wizard.
Will is the name of the character.
Yeah. Okay, that's where I recognized him from. It's arguably the second best Nightmare on Elm Street film.
Really? I wouldn't know. I'm not never.
It's all right. You don't have to rush out and
bad about that.
Claim that we gave Citizen Kane earlier.
Yeah, there we are. Once again, the yin and the yang of this broadcast. We've talked about Citizen Kane. And Scott's sending a message.
Oh my God. So he can't do the episode today because he texted or he called me saying that Henry just started throwing up cucumbers, and I was like, did he eat cucumbers?
Now, he sent us a picture of Henry lying on the bathroom floor, definitely looking ill.
He looks like me at any point in my 20s.
Is that? But your head would be a little closer to the toilet, I think.
Well, I worked at it. I learned the tricks of the trade.
Is that a cucumber on Henry, or is that like a little toy? That's a toy on Henry.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that would be so dickish of Scott to be like, hey, here's a cucumber since you've been throwing them up.
Yeah. What's that jar of pickles doing right next to the toilet? That he's taunting him. I think that's
so mean. Well,
do you want to take a break and then we'll come back?
At some point in the future, happy Thanksgiving, Henry. When you listen to this episode, you'll remember that we were talking about you throwing up.
Happy memories.
Yeah. So is that where we leave off for the commercials? That's where the act break happens, right?
Yeah, that's the act break. That's it.
All right. So with that, we'll be right back. And we're back. The other thing that would have been interesting, if we didn't even want them, Marsha Elkman? What's her name?
Elkins.
Elkins. If we didn't want Marsha, Amy should run against Mallory. It just occurred to me, it's like you already have her. She's already been a recurring character because she was in a different episode, so it's not, I don't know contractually what that would look like, but why not have her be the antagonist?
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Skippy going against Mallory.
In between. Right. That would be great.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have a campaign poster in this first scene. It's a picture of a huge picture of Alex with like a little passport picture of Mallory on it.
Right.
He announces that the campaign truck, the campaign bus, is outside the Keaton home, and he's like on Bullhorn on a campaign bus.
Again, they've said this earlier in the episode, the only people who can vote in this election are Grant College students.
What the hell are you doing with a bus?
Maybe this is a tax dodge. Do you think that Alex is running some sort of scheme, like he's Paul Manafort?
Oh, sweet God. All I could write down, his ego in this scene is so out of control. It's to the point where somebody, like a parent, someone should say, hey, Alex, you need to check yourself.
Yeah, and it's really out of control because at least in other episodes, it felt like his ego and his egoism was born out of the reality of the plot line. At this point, now he's just destroying things that have nothing to do with him.
I was like, you're doing this as to get your sister elected president of a junior college that you mock 6 times an episode.
He's really losing it. Alex is really falling apart.
There's no reason on God's earth why or anyone's earth why this should happen.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you for being so inclusive of to other beings.
Yes, you know what? I don't believe in God, and if I say God's earth, my wife, who's 20 feet away, would usually correct me. She'd usually say something to correct me, so I corrected her. Universe, right? The universe. There's no reason in the universe, in the sweet holy Gaia of Earth, why this should have happened.
Speaking of which, so last weekend, my girlfriend and I put on Christmas music already.
Yeah.
Because I'm becoming anti-meme.
Right. I was gonna say
everything's so miserable that's my new favorite song. That I just listen to that. I'm trying to find the perfect version or cover of "We Need a Little Christmas."
Need a little Christmas right this
very minute. Right? Because it's so sad. The world is so sad.
As the Japanese houseboy?
I didn't. I was too young. I auditioned to play the nephew, but my singing was so shitty I didn't get it.
That's why I immediately went right for the Japanese houseboy for you.
Right. It's much more logical that I would have been like the culturally inappropriate casting choice.
Oh, they would have put bad Jerry Lewis teeth in you, and you would have worn the glasses you're wearing right now, and like a cap that's almost a cross between like a yarmulke and a fez, but really offensive to everyone of Oriental descent.
Yes, this is truly the 1960s racist version of, which is when the musical came out.
I went to see a show in Vegas once, and somebody gave me free tickets. I was doing a show in Vegas, and someone gave the whole cast free tickets. And we sat up in the lighting booth and watched this show. And it featured it had showgirls. This was 25 years ago when they were like showgirls and costumes and sets. And it featured a comedian who was as Caucasian as you and I, and he had fake Asian eyes and Asian teeth.
No.
He like came out like with pulling a rickshaw, and he like talk like a dish.
Oh no!
25 years ago, my mouth was hanging open. Like I kept on looking out of the lighting booth to see if there was any Asian American guests who were going to start to scream or storm the stage or something.
What was the audience doing? Were they freaking out?
Laughing. They were laughing. It's Middle Americans. Come on. They love to make fun of everybody who's ethnic.
Jesus Christ.
I just couldn't believe. I was like, really? People are laughing? They're literally mocking Asian accents.
Oh.
And it was so offensive.
Our friend Justin and I went to see Tony Clifton on Broadway.
Uh-huh.
and I could barely make it through. We left probably about 20 minutes early. It was so offensive, and not in the way where it's just like, oh, it's transgressive and funny. No, it was this like it was all of these Staten Island Trump voting racists and him just shouting the N-word at times, and I'm just
Oh
like,
my God.
it was fucking awful.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's horrifying. So we cut from first of all, we end the scene with a poster of Honest Mal. It's like Abe Lincoln in a stovepipe hat and Mallory's face.
I would absolutely pay money to get a copy of that prop.
Honest Mal prop.
Yeah.
And then we cut right from there to campaign headquarters. Now, make a guess. How many people were on that set?
I want to say at least 24.
So 24 would be 24, and I was going to say 30. Yep, somewhere between 24 and 30 people, I would think.
Was that 100 a day?
That's so silly. I can't believe how many people were on that set. And then there were phone banks too. And
now,
didn't
the whole family's working for the campaign.
Right. Okay. Now that was my first thing. Family's there, and didn't it like look like one of Steven's PBS drives?
Yes, had to be the same set.
It was the same set. They have that phone bank somewhere.
Yeah.
And so they have Steven and Elise. All of a sudden, what are they on the phones doing?
Yeah, getting out the vote. No one had cell phones back then. You wouldn't be calling and be like, "Hey, get out of class and go vote."
And then 4 minutes into the scene, with everyone still on the phone, the results are being announced on the radio. So what were the people doing on the fucking phones?
Yeah, like how many minutes until the polls closed, and then
the polls need to close. There was no reality to this whatsoever, and they expected the whole audience to go, "Oh, this makes sense. This is just like election night."
Oh, you know what? Family Ties' whole ethos seems to be, don't think too hard, guys. It just sort of, it's just like, you just let things wash over you. Plot doesn't need to make sense. Jokes don't need to be funny.
At the beginning of every episode.
Yeah, just turn off your brain.
Yeah, the producers of Family Ties just want you to sit back and relax. Please don't try and think too much.
Yeah.
So here they are they're talking about Command Post 1. And they're talking to Jennifer at Command Post. Command Post 2. Andy's at a command post, different from Jennifer, and the parents are there. Who the fuck is with Andy?
I don't get it. I don't get what they're like. Again, there's no conflict here. It's just craziness.
And there's more people working the campaign, I think, than attend Grant College.
That I would not be shocked to find out.
So all of a sudden, we find out the results are just about in. So everybody drops the phones and they gather around the radio like it's 1936 and War of the Worlds is about to come on.
Yeah.
And they sit there and they find out that the winner, the new college president, is Marsha Elkins.
It's a sad day in Mudville.
And we're sitting there going, who the fuck is Marsha Elkins?
Because they never mentioned her before that moment.
The biggest moment in the show, the denouement of the show, if you will. And yet we never heard her name mentioned before.
I would watch an episode just about Marsha. I want to see what her... I want it to be like The War Room, the Clinton documentary that they made back in the 90s.
Yep. With James Carville in it.
Yeah, I want to see that whole story.
Mallory Keaton, she should be winning this election. Really good.
Oh my God, Corey, you're so terrible at voices and stuff. That was the best Carville I've ever heard.
I listen a lot to James Carville. I like him very, very much.
That's so good.
My wife, Mary Nutlin. She's a Republican, but she's a nice piece of ass.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah. For those of our fans who enjoy a good James Carville impersonation.
We really are trying to get rid of cut some of the chaff. We have a little bit too many listeners.
Yeah. We're going for a better class of clientele on this show.
You know, he's the one who coined the expression about Pennsylvania, the voters in Pennsylvania, saying that it was Pittsburgh on the left, Philly on the right and Alabama in between.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So who are the voters in Pennsylvania going to go for in that senatorial election?
Well, luckily they don't have to.
Thank God, or else
Yeah.
Roy Moore would be elected twice probably.
Yeah, yeah. Ugh.
So clearly, after Marsha Elkins is elected, Alex looks like he's taking it harder than Mallory.
And this is where the show falls apart 100% because
100%.
he's pissed off, but he doesn't say anything. He's just like, "Ugh, Marsha Elkins, that idiot," and then he goes on. He storms out, but we don't know why he's so pissed off. We don't know. There's no build from this at all. It's just like the air goes out of the scene.
It makes no sense at all. And then he sort of leaves the scene demanding a recount.
Yeah.
So we go to the kitchen for our every episode finale that takes place in the kitchen. And clearly the conflict here is she doesn't think this is a big deal. She says this is no big deal. She's just fine with it, Mallory. Mm-hmm. But to Alex, he is a big deal. And did it strike you in any way that Alex behaved the way we imagined our current president would have behaved if Secretary Clinton had won the election?
You know what? It hurts my heart to imagine such a situation. I don't think I can go with you down that path of imagining what the world would be like.
I know it's too fantasy driven to think what the world would be like if Trump had lost. But he just sort of behaved in such an ungracious, no, I counted every last ballot and I'm going to count it again and I'm going to go back tomorrow. And this was the good part of this scene.
Yeah. Because I disagree with your initial thing that you said, where the conflict is between Mallory, who doesn't care, and Alex, who really cares. I think the conflict is between that there are 6 minutes left in this episode, and the writers don't know what to do.
Right, and they got to fill the 6 minutes. That's the real conflict going on in this scene.
Yes,
and how they choose to fill those 6 minutes is what we will now discuss, because they choose to fill the 6 minutes with what we referred to before we started recording as the longest scene ever. And it's just Alex and Mallory rehashing growing up as brother and sister together.
Do they go through 2 or 3 different anecdotes about fun things they used to do?
I think it was 3, but I have a tendency to turn my ears off and stop listening at a certain point, or else I'm just going to start throwing up my lunch.
Yes. Yeah, it's amazing. They find these, like, we're gonna fill their history with backstory of stuff they used to do, and they do it always in a monologue form, and they always think it's more interesting than it is. It's never interesting.
It's never interesting. And the director, whoever directs these episodes, is hyper aware that it's dull, because we have Mallory going and getting a soda at one point, and then Alex goes on the longest cross in the history of television to go and get the cookie jar and walk back cradling the cookie jar in his arms, and slowly undoes the cookie jar and gets a cookie for himself. I'm thinking, you don't offer your sister a cookie? You're holding a cookie jar in your hand. You're holding the cookie jar, eating a cookie. You don't offer? So he finally puts the cookie jar down. The most interesting thing that happens is 2 minutes later, she finally reaches into the cookie jar and she takes a cookie. So now the scene's going on long enough for all of this to happen with the fucking cookie jar.
I'm so impressed that you followed that part, because that was I couldn't even look.
I wasn't listening to what they were saying. I was only watching the shtick that they gave him to try and make the scene more interesting. That was failing miserably.
Oh, Scott just asked what the conflict in this episode was. I think we've established that, Scott. You'll just have to go back and listen to this episode.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah. So that's one plot line that happens, is that we have this cookie incident. We also have them talking about all of the stuff that they used to do when they were fun with kids. The third plot line that I want to discuss that they do in this 6 minute melange is they are beginning to circle the drain about the end of the episode. Like, like a grandparent with some sort of debilitating disease, Family Ties has just acknowledged its own mortality, that it's about to, there's an end in sight.
Yeah.
Because what Alex says to her is, you know, I don't know how many more times like this we're going to have together. I'm going to move out, and I'm going to go to New York and work on Wall Street and marry Lauren. And then Mallory's like, oh, I'm going to marry Nick and move to New York and work in fashion. And I'm like, yeah, you guys, there's not too much more of this.
Season and a half by my calculations.
So that was exciting.
Thrilled me.
Do you think that they've decided at this point that they're probably not, they're going to do one more?
Yeah, I think it's season 6 and they signed contracts for 7, so I think they could see their handwriting on the wall.
Yeah. But this is definitely the first time that sort of a thing came up.
Right. And it's just the two of them on the scene, and we sort of end with the two of them just bonding brother and sister style.
Yeah, there's this one ongoing joke that they used to eat cereal, and their parents, because they were hippies, only had them eat granola, so they went to Skippies in order to eat Fruit Loops. And
right.
So,
and the box of cereal is supposed to be untouched.
Because they never ate it. So they go under the sink, and he grabs the old granola box, and he blows the dust off it, which I was hoping he would, but the prop department totally whiffed, and there wasn't enough dust.
Not at all. And that was the freeze frame end of the episode, too.
Yeah.
Wanted it to be a dusty box of cereal, and they sort of didn't get that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that they talked about during that time?
I turned my brain off. I just can't listen to it. It's just so awful.
Yeah. I just was so shocked that they invented this. Oh, and you know what? And the fourth thing is that Alex talks about the fact that, again, he's oh no, there's a couple things. He talks about how he can argue politics with Dad. He can talk about family stuff with Mom, economics with Jennifer, which he never does.
Yes.
And then he goes, but I can always talk to you about
emotion.
And it was just like, because this was a part of the conversation that was out of nowhere, and I'm like, he's so fucking.
I didn't even know you had emotions, Alex.
Yeah, but it's so weird because he's such a sociopath that like,
it's like I don't have any
this
emotion.
has to be in relation to me. I can only talk about me right now.
Yeah, exactly. I can't really talk about us. I can only talk about me.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's Alex B. Keaton for you.
That's it.
This episode had potential. It's so shocking that they spent so much money on all of the cast. This is the most cast in an episode I think I've seen in a long time.
Oh, it was a big cast. There were a lot of trailers that week.
Yeah. Anything else? Corey, do you have anything Thanksgiving-y that you want to say?
Well, yeah. No. Nothing Thanksgiving. Well, I'm thankful, for anyone who listens to this thing.
Me too. That's something to be thankful for.
Who was our friend who was tweeting us last week?
Oh,
gentleman who just discovered our podcast. Yes, on Facebook, who just discovered our podcast.
Oh my gosh, I'm looking right now.
Gaiman?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, there's been people that have been finding us, so thank you very much for checking in and listening, and they've had some ideas of things that they want us to discuss, which we will soon. It's episodes coming up. Justine Bateman might have been on SNL at one point as a host, so we might watch that and discuss it in a few months.
Hey, did you see Night of 100 Laughs the other night? With the Michael.
Night of Too Many Stars.
Night of Too Many Stars, whatever.
I couldn't get through it. Did you watch it?
No, I can't get through it. I just saw the shot of Michael J. Fox.
Oh, he looked great. Yes.
That was fun to see him.
I mean, that opening with Jon Stewart, I was just like, did anybody rehearse this? Is this?
No. It was simply the joy of a Daily Show reunion. The written comedy was not as important.
No. Anyway, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I hope that this episode gave you an opportunity to get away from your Trump voting family for 45 minutes.
Oh, that's right. We actually we post this on Thursday, so this will be posted on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's why I keep talking about it. Yeah. I'm thinking fourth dimensionally, Corey.
Nah, good for you. I have to think two-dimensionally. Axes me.
All right. Rate and review our show on iTunes. For questions and comments, email us at qualitytimewithfamilyties@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at QTWFT for updates. You can follow each of us on Twitter. I'm at Paul Packler.
I'm at Corpep, and Scott's at Follow Jones, and Henry's at Cucumber Vomit.
Now I have to start that. Now I have to. What else? Like our page on Facebook, and we'd like to thank our host and producer Barbara Dillon at Fanbase Press. Fanbase Press is a comic book publisher and online community supporting creators and fans through daily reviews, interviews, and podcasts that span the pop culture spectrum. Fanbasepress.com. Also, Perry Adams, who beautifully performs Family Ties and our theme song Without Us. Check out Perry's website, perryadams.com. Also, Bryant Dillon, who created our fantastic drawing and artwork, as well as edits our show. Bryant is the president and co-founder of Fanbase Press. Follow him on Twitter at Comic Book Slayer. Sean Foster, Fanbase Press's graphic designer, for designing our logo. We will see you next week. Happy Thanksgiving.
Gobble, gobble.
Bye.